going on, producer friends? Welcome back to Croco Nation. Been a little absent the past couple weeks. I was working on finishing up my Casa Volume 1 sound bank. It is a tech house / Latin tech house sound bank. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider checking it out at croconation.com or for an easy dub access, links down below. This is also the pack I'm going to be using in today's lesson. And today we're going to be going over how to make Latin tech house drops like Cloonee and many more artists. So recently I've been really inspired by all the videos from Club Space in Miami and all the after hour parties, you know what I'm saying? So I noticed throughout these sets, they do a lot of reggaeton remix. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to begin a remix. And so for today's lesson, I'm going to show you a little remix I'm currently working on. Still in the early stages, but so I'm going to break down some of the elements that will help you get that Cloonee or San Pancho kind of feel. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, guys. So this is the demo track I prepared. Now, keep in mind, I've been really busy with work, other things going on right now. So this is still a work in progress, but I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to show what kind of elements go into making a Cloonee style track, right? Or all those types of guys that are coming up. Now, it's not going to be exactly like them, but it's going to have certain elements that I picked out from them and I got inspired by. So I think this is going to be a great way to show it. And what better way to show it than with the reggaeton banger, right? So the remix is going to smack. So let's go ahead and hear it. Fire. All right, guys, first thing, we're going to get straight to it. One of the most important elements to achieve that sound is going to be the bass line. Typically, what you want to see in the bass line is going to be short and punchy, kind of like a knock bass. And so the way you're going to achieve that is by using a pretty good preset. The preset that we're going to be using here is going to be the clean knock bass. It's going to be on the Casa Volume 1 pack on the Croco Nation website. And this is how it sounds like. So a couple things are happening, right? One, it's a short knock style bass with a short release, minimal sustain, of course. And then also it has some sort of rhythmic pattern to it. And by rhythmic pattern, I mean a fast rhythm, right? That's typically what I see from them. So this is just a pattern that I have, right? But you can mess around with it. So I don't know how accurate this is, but what I've noticed is that a lot of these artists like to work around the kick, right? So I usually draw my MIDI around the kick. And let me see if I can find the kick here. I should probably group them. I'm a mess, guys. Leave me alone. So as you can see here, it's the kick and then the bass. It looks a little extended, but you know the release is so short that it's not really gonna mess with this transient here. And I have it sidechained, so you can see for the most part that they're not on where the kick hits. Right? It's actually around the kick. So that's what I mean by that. So let's hear these two together solo. But that's typically the pattern that I see to add that movement. If you want to get your track played at Space Miami, you got to do these things, you know what I'm saying? So here's another example of that bass line. I just did something real quick, put it together just to show you the short and fast rhythmic pattern that I was talking about to get that sound. So let's hear it. Knock bass. Next, we're going to go over to our kick. Typically, the kick, from what I've seen, is very punchy. And the cool part about that short bass line is that you can afford to have a bigger kick if you want to. I'd probably stay, you know, me personally, to the shorter kicks. I feel like those work better. So once again, I use the Casa Volume 1 pack. I forgot what kick I used. I used the Miami kick. Or did I use... No, it wasn't the Tijuana one. Little Hong Kong kick, you know what I'm saying? All right, so I use a Miami kick, and typically what I like to do is add a little bit of saturation. That's going to add some more color, some more distortions. It sounds like it's punchier. Mess with the dry wet a little bit to my liking. So let's go ahead and solo that and hear it. So it's adding a little more body to it, right? So the next topic is going to be regarding hi-hats and claps. So, you know, to achieve that sound, I typically hear that the release time is short, right? So you don't have these super long open hi-hat. You want to bring down that release. So the way I did it here, I was a little lazy because I was busy. You know, I have to work at night because I got a day job, guys. I just dragged and dropped this top loop from the Croco Nation Casa Volume 1 pack. And what I did here is when you go in, I left it on beats mode. and then make sure that this preserve is on transients, and they want to make sure that you click this release button. I think it's a release, but let me solo it so I can show you how it sounds. So this is with the modification that I did. You see how it's nice and short. So obviously the lower you go, the shorter it's going to be. And the higher you go, the more release or sustain it's going to have. So let's hear it with 100% sustain or release, and let's hear the difference. Bring it down. You see how it gets more of that Cloonee or, Space Miami effect? It sounds shorter, it sounds tighter, and it's making space for everything else as opposed to having it, the crazy open hi-hat and so forth. Don't get me wrong though, those open hi-hats have their place. It's just not here. And then next is just a clap. This top loop already came with the clap, but it was sitting in the middle, kind of like mono. And so I wanted to get some stereo width, so that's why I just added this clap here and just added some width, right? Obviously get rid of some of the low end if any frequencies come through. Did a pretty good job removing any unwanted frequencies, but sometimes, I don't know, maybe with the conversion it happens. And so I just added width to the clap here. Nothing crazy. On the link down below, I do have a video that shows how I break down tech house drums, and all this relates to what I'm doing here. And that's going to be this bad boy right here. Drum tips for tech house and Ableton. If you're trying to get that Latin tech house feel, really important to add some sort of percussions, bongos, congas, and so forth. So what I did here is I actually used some AI tool. I think it's called Fader, something like that. I'm not sponsored by them. And they did an okay job, So I ended up stealing these percussions from that song. But you can use any of them from Splice or however you like. Whichever percussions that you think will fit in your track. So it sounds like this. Right, auto pan, get rid of the lows, maybe add some saturation. And I think, I removed some of the release here, so it's a shorter hit. So that's another way to add some sort of color or flavor to your track and make it more Tulum or Miami focused. And for my last and final tip, guys, one of the things that I've noticed Cloonee do a lot in his tracks is he allows room for the track to breathe, right? And let me explain that in detail here. So he likes to introduce, which I've noticed, not all his tracks, but a lot of tracks, he likes to introduce the hi-hat later, and he keeps it real simple and minimal. So the way he does that is he adds typically a vocal or maybe like a lead, and it's just a kick, bass, and the vocal or lead. So as you can hear at the first part of the drop, it's just going to be the kick, it's going to be the bass, and it's going to be the vocal. Just those three elements. I think you can add a little white noise very minimally in the back. I think that's what I did here. But typically it's just going to be that for like the first, 8 bars or so, 8 measures. And then after that, you can introduce the hi-hats and clap and so forth. And then, percussions or bongos like I did here. So let's go ahead and hear it. Just a vocal, bass, and kick. There you go. Now we get the hi-hats going, so it's not a boring sitch. Added a little riser here from the Casa Volume 1 pack as well. It's called the Heavy Duty Riser. Just to add some color. I heard him do this in that song, Fine Night, I think it's called. And he randomly adds like some sort of saw riser. So I thought it was pretty cool. So I kind of got inspired by that as well. Kind of a Alibaba ripoff version. Think he does a little better, but I just want to add that there, just to add some color. But if you notice the fact that he just has these 3 elements, right? The vocal, the kick, and the bass, and then slowly starts introducing new elements little by little, keeps you engaged, right? Keeps you interested in the track. And so I think that's a very important thing that he does. Very minimal kind of sounding, but it's just enough, and it keeps you engaged, and it just creates a banger. I like things that have space in it. So I think Cloonee specifically does a really good job on this. This is a little bonus tip that I wanted to throw in. So something that I like to do in my songs or tracks is I like to add variation to it, especially in the drop, so it doesn't get boring, because it's, especially with house music, it's very repetitive for most electronic music. And so as you can see, the first part of the drop is the vocal, but the second part of the drop is actually the guitar, right, that they use in the song, and it's very catchy. So that's something I really wanted to keep in this song, or this remix here. And so what I did here is I actually brought it down, I think 12 semitones to add more variation to it. And it's just literally the guitar pitched down like this. So that's what I did, just to add some variation. I thought I sounded a cool pitch down, but you know, you can mess around with that. Just be creative with it, guys. All right, folks, that's all. I really hope you found this useful. I just wanted to share some of the techniques that I noticed while listening to all these live sets. And of course, as always, if you have any tips or recommendations that would help the community make better music, feel free to comment down below. And also, if you found this useful, please consider following or subscribing. And once again, if you'd like to support the channel, please consider going to croconation.com or click on the links down below. All right, guys, that's all. Take care.